Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee, and it looks like the live stream's running. All right, let's get this set up better. Here we go. Okay, today's Sunday, December 21, and it's 8:33 in the morning here in Israel. It's a sunny day. Get this out of here. And let's look at the weather. It looks like we might get some warmth today. Let's see. Let us see what we're looking at. Not much. 66. Well, I know if you're living in Greenland or Canada or Scandinavia, that's a lot. But for us, it's not. But it's better than nothing. Tomorrow we go to 65. Then we go to 62, 65, 67, 67. We stay. Then we go down to the low 60s. I don't see any rain for about 10 days forecast. No, I do. I see it a week from this coming Tuesday. But it's coming in at 45%. And that's way too far off for such a low probability. If they were saying that it was coming in at 90%, I'd be pretty interested. But all right, so what we're going to cover today is what I believe the Lord showed me. And that is we're going to discuss Trump and oil and BRiCS and what he's doing. And it's pretty ugly. Okay, and how he's really rocking the apple cart by using Israel as his own personal tool, which Biden did, and he's just continuing. So Trump sits there and says dirty Joe and all that, but he's following the same thing that Biden was doing, and Biden didn't think it up. The people that got brains, not him, in the government thought it up. Okay, and we'll cover all of that. And it's, America has a very, very serious risk with BRiCS. I mean, BRiCS is trying to put an end to America economically, okay? And that'll wreck America, and it'll wreck the European Union and quite a few other countries. Okay? It's not lightweight. It's serious. And I've talked to you about that a long time now. So we're going to get into it today, and I'm going to show you how he's really breaking prophecy and how he's really trying to make a mockery of God. And I believe the Lord showed me this, okay? Because I don't know where I would have got it from. All of a sudden, it's just in my head, All right, so I'll take a look to make sure we got a live stream, but I'm not going to spend any time on it. I'm probably not going to be able to see it here. These idiots, they got, I'll give it one last try. Oh, wait, it might have fixed. Whoa, it might have fixed. Let's see. It fixed. I'll give it one last try. Oh, wait, it might have fixed. Whoa, it might have fixed. Let's see. It fixed. I'll give it one last try. Oh, wait, it might have fixed. Oh, it might have fixed. Let's see. It fixed. Okay, let's get this pinned up. Got it. Okay. All right. I did change some settings yesterday. Oh, I'm telling you, I was working on this for 2 days trying to fix this thing. Uh, Unbelievable. I mean, I thought it was just the iPad was the problem. So then I went ahead and started using an Android tablet that I'm broadcasting on. And, you know, that was the same thing. I mean, I believe that they're programming things. They tell you they're improving things, they're making it worse, and they're doing it on purpose. I know it sounds paranoid, but I think Satan's just making people crazy. They do say that if you have a computer, you can fix these things easier. I have an old Apple, but I didn't get that desperate. I got it working, so I'm happy. I actually improved some other stuff too, so I'm doing okay with that right now. So it didn't just work. I mean, I changed some settings that it was such a nightmare. They tell you, well, you can't do it on the app. You got to go get the browser, and then when you get the browser, you got to enter studio mode on the browser, and then even then you don't find it. Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, what I did is I have it set for only subscribers can post, and subscribers have to be subscribed for at least a day. And my thought is this will cut down very tremendously on the nasty people that got nothing better to do with their lives, just insult strangers. So hopefully it reduces that. My thoughts, anyway. All right. So I'm going to do some praise, being a Bible believing site, Old and New Testament. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so today we'll start with the general news, and then we'll go to what Trump's up to, and that'll be tied with prophecy, so we'll have our Bible tied in that way. Okay? So there were some very interesting things in the news that are worthy of being covered. One, which is rather ugly, is Netanyahu's going to bring some strike packages to Trump later this week. No, next week, I think. He goes on the 28th, a week from now, to hit Iran. And today I'm going to explain to you why Netanyahu's coming up with strike packages and all of this stuff. You'll see it. I mean, when you watch this and listen to it, you're going to really know what Trump is up to, and you're going to agree with it because there's so many facts. The United States just approved an arms sale to Taiwan of $11 billion. Taiwan is going to buy 82 HIMARS missiles that can easily reach into China. I think, as I understand it, they could get into China. 420 ATACMS missiles, long-range surface-to-surface missiles that Taiwan could use with HIMARS launchers. Now, these missiles are intended to defend Taiwan, but the missiles will be placed in Taiwan. They become Taiwan property once they're landed in Taiwan and turned over. So they can do what they want with them. So the thing here is they can reach China. Now, they're not going to be able to go deep into China, but China has bases at ports very close to Taiwan, and they have these boats that can ferry troops over from China to Taiwan on these converted ferry boats that carry large amount of troops. And I think you're looking at about 47 miles. That's it. So the HIMARS will, some of these missiles get up around 90 miles. So they could go and hit the ports and stuff like that. So in other words, China keeps these troops to ferry troops and tanks and other weapons over there, and they keep warships over there and tied up at the dock. And Taiwan could fire a large amount of missiles at these warships and put China's missile defense system to a test. If I was going to guess, probably China would take down someplace between 25 and 50% of the missiles, so they would suffer losses, bad ones. So it changes the balance of things. So it's almost like Trump wants to just get China out of his hair. He's got bigger and better fish to fry, petroleum specifically, and he's tired of futzing around with China and Taiwan. So now he's basically saying, you want to go mess around with Taiwan, go ahead. I give them 100-something missiles, and they're going to get a lot through, and you're going to have a lot of damages, dead soldiers, loss of morale, a lot of problems, okay? So you want that, go ahead. And these missiles belong to Taiwan. So don't come crying to me that, we're behind it. They're Taiwan missiles. So he's cooling the jets of China so he can continue doing what he wants to do, which is Venezuela. He doesn't want interference there. We're going to get into that today, deeper than I did the last time, way deeper. Okay, Colorado wildfires spread to 40,000 acres. Okay, we're just about at Christmas time and we're still having wildfires in Colorado and California. Yeah, I shall kindle fires in and about our cities, in the plural. Cities, plural, means it's not Washington, D.C. alone. It's many cities. Okay. Gaza, at least 4 buildings have further collapsed in the last few hours. This was taken last night, or yesterday afternoon. So there was 95 buildings previous to that. So now they're up to, we could probably say, something like 100 buildings collapsed. And I would begin to call that rather definitely the continuing whirlwind of the Lord falling on the head of the wicked. Okay? So what I'm trying to tell you here, and most people won't understand it, is that there is progress towards our target, which is the appearing in the clouds with redemption and everlasting life. There is progress. It's subtle. And it's going to be subtle. They're not going to get it. Okay? So the reason it's called, refers to it like the days of Noah and Lot, is because the victims of these things didn't know it until it hit them. It's the same that's going to happen now. So there were, I could read you the list of the buildings, but you're not going to know what they are. So I think it's a pointless endeavor. It reads like collapse of a building in the Zaytun area in Jabalaya in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. I mean, you don't know where that is, so I don't see the point in wasting time in reading this stuff out, you know? Of course, the buildings would have different sizes and heights and all of that. Okay, so we're not going to get into that. Let's go to the more info on the publication of the Epstein files. So I believe this is going to take Trump down for what he's doing with the oil in Israel. You'll see it in a few moments. I believe, I can't tell you the Lord definitely showed me this, but I think it's either to make Trump sweat bullets or to actually take Trump out in a shameful way. Okay. Which takes it to Vance, which is probably worse. The U.S. Department of Justice continues to release materials from the Epstein files. A significant portion of the materials is redacted. See, this is a joke. This is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, saying, yeah, I'll release them, and then taking a magic marker the size of a paintbrush and brushing them over in black. It's a joke. And the Democrats in Congress are not laughing. They're going after her. They're talking about going after her criminally. And she's not going to do anything because Trump is telling her he'll pardon her. But we don't know if the pardon will work because she's doing a cover-up for Trump. She's a lawyer. She should know that. So the situation is tense and confusing with the Epstein files right now. What I want to know about is auditing the Federal Reserve Bank. Remember months ago, him and Elon Musk, every day we're auditing it, we're going to do this, and then all of a sudden nothing. Why? What happened? They don't tell us. Trump considers us morons, and we're not, Satan bots, so we have no right to information. We're morons. Look, we have voted for him. No wonder he thinks we're morons. I didn't vote. I wouldn't vote for anybody. You become a partaker in their deeds. Why vote? That's why Satan got away from the kings. See, the kings were appointed by birth. The people couldn't do anything about it. So when the leaders, be they kings or dictators, did things, the people had what could they do about it? Generally, they would take weapons away from the people. And what are they going to do? So did God hold the people responsible for this? How could he? They had no say in the matter, no control. So did he over time decide to give mercy to these people that probably were crying out to him, not just Israelites, and destroy the government. See, but when you do the elections, calling it a democracy, which is a fraud, or originally it was a republic, which is a lot better than a democracy, but not good enough. And America hasn't been a republic in, I don't know, 200 years or more, So he can't hold the people responsible for it with a king or a dictator. And then he gets rid of the king or the dictator because all the dirt, all the bad deeds fall on him and his administration, not we, the people of the country. Okay? So that's why he put voting and democracy in. So then when the government does things bad, the people are held responsible too, because they became partakers in his regime taking office by voting for him. You see the evil there? So that's why you see countries like America lasting from 1776 because of the elections. Got it? So look what they came up with. Photos of the Qatari prince. That's an evil, rotten country that rubs white paint all over itself, but it's dark soot. The jerk's name is Jabor bin Khalid Al Thani. Well, why didn't they just call him, Prince Jabor Smith Jones, Baker, boy, girl, elephant, tiger? He could have given him 25 names, He only got 1, 2, 3, 4, only got 5 names. What kind of king is that, with pictures with Epstein. So they're trying to throw heat off of Trump by bringing this prince in. Nothing's ever going to happen to the prince. It's actually to criticize the prince or the government of Qatar is a crime in Qatar. A wealth of photos of former U.S. President Bill Clinton have been published, as well as the actor Kevin Spacey. So yeah, Clinton's right. Trump's trying to throw mud on him to get it off himself. And the same with Kevin Spacey, but he doesn't count. He's nothing. There is evidence of Epstein himself having contact with minors and young girls. So this cover-up is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, is apparently trying to throw curveballs into this to make it look like she's playing straight where she's crooked as a dog's hind leg. She's still redacting massive amounts. So that means she wants to limit the scandal or not let a scandal take off by the redacting. If she was protecting the names of the victims like she says she was, what you would see is 2 words, like Jill Brown would be redacted, not big blocks of paragraphs. You understand? Okay, so she's doing a con job and a bad one. The idea with the Democrats threatening her with criminal prosecution is to try to scare her into going against Trump and releasing compromised photos and information from the Epstein files so they could turn around and impeach Trump. That's what they want to do, is get rid of Trump. That's obvious, right? The problem is, as soon as she starts doing something like that, Trump will fire her. I believe he could replace her. What he would do is probably tell her to resign immediately, with no explanation. And if they come after you, I'll pardon you. I'll just say you were acting under my control, and he can't say that. He'd pardon her anyway. Okay. Unofficial Syrian sources are telling us what? In the American strikes the other night, 2 nights ago in Syria, Abu Hamza al something, I don't know how to pronounce this junk, an ISIS operative was responsible for planning the attack, which the American soldiers were killed, plus the American that was an interpreter, civilian. So they killed the head. So Trump actually was behaving intelligently here. He took a week to get the retaliation because he probably used drones, special forces, reconnaissance flights, eavesdropping electronically on communications and phone calls and bribes and informants and everything else, until bribes to informants, until he got his package right, and then it worked. The Palestinians, which is not Syria, are now saying, although they really are Syrians, but anyway, Jordanian Syrians, but anyway, the occupation army releases dozens of Boers in the Nur Shams RC that's a refugee camp, I believe, in Tulkarm. A boar is a pig, and the Sharia law forbids the eating of swine or pork or pigs, and a boar is a pig, okay? So they're releasing it, and I don't know what they're up to, but when America was fighting in the Philippines, they had trouble with the Muslims there, and the army took pork fat and put it inside hollow point bullets. And then the mullahs gave I don't know what it is, some kind of a papal bull from Mohammedism that said that if the Americans put in the bullets and shoot you and you get the pork in you, it doesn't hurt you spiritually, because you didn't do it, they did it, something like that. So they uncovered a tunnel in Al Bukamal in Syria. They uncovered a tunnel this is significant, that links Iraq and Syria, east of Deir ez-Zor, that residents and media described as constructed by Iranian forces / pro-Iranian militias, used for smuggling weapons and heavy munitions and other goods across the border from Iraq to Syria. Iraq and Iran are attached. So Iran brings contraband weapons, or weapons you could say, into Iraq, and they put it in the tunnel, and they bring it into Syria for the Iranian-backed militias. The tunnel reportedly extends roughly 500 meters into Syrian territory and was guarded by unidentified vehicles. So it's about 1,500 feet. It's, 4 or 5 blocks, something like that, inside Syria. So it was probably not very deep in Iraq. So it's a reasonably small tunnel. It probably, I can't say for sure. It might have been big enough to drive trucks through. I don't know. What Netanyahu is telling Trump, or Trump is telling Netanyahu to tell him publicly, is that they have a threat from Iran building up their hypersonic ballistic missiles, getting them up to about 2,000. So Netanyahu wants to destroy these missiles, and he's trying to get Trump's permission, I assume. We'll get onto this a little later. This was a little bit unusual, I would say. In South Africa, gunmen killed 10 people by bullet. The police don't know why yet. It could be rival gangs, it could be terrorists, who knows? It'll come out, I assume. The Lebanese prime minister says the country is close to completing Hezbollah dismantling south of the Litani River. Then he's going to go to the next phase, which is disabling or demilitarizing Hezbollah north of the Litani River. Now, I'm very skeptical about how real this is, and so is Israel. They may have worked something out with him, giving up sacrificial lambs, missile sites, tunnels, command centers, just to get the heat off. We'll find out. For the first time ever, the new Syrian Minister of Foreign Affairs published a map of Syria which does not include the Syrian side of the Golan Heights. Now, Trump is the only one I know that could have effectively arranged that. See, what I'll explain to you in a little while is Trump is rewarding Israel. We'll get into this. Some bozo called Yasser Guler, the Turkish Minister of Defense, he says this is an official quote, "We insist on taking part in the International Stabilization Force in Gaza, despite Israel's opposition." Trump's not going for it. The Prime Minister of Lebanon, Nawat Salam, "We are only a few days away from completing the first stage of the disarmament of the Hezbollah, the area south of the Litani River, we are prepared to move on to the second stage of the disarmament, which is north of the Litani River. Well, like I say, I'm very skeptical about how truthful this is, and I don't know yet. I can't imagine that they're doing anything other than a sham. Because if it was real, they would be fighting Hezbollah and killing Hezbollah then. And I don't read anything like that. And I don't believe Hezbollah is voluntarily just giving up their weapons. So that reduces things to a fraud, just a sham, you know. So Witkoff and Jared Kushner are calling the Gaza rehabilitation thing luxury resorts and Project Sunrise. I don't guess that unless they're trying to subtly worship the sun god, which is very likely with idiots like that. It's a nice idea they have. It's also a pipe dream. A pipe dream is people would go to an opium den. That's the pipe they'd smoke opium in. And they'd go off on the nod like a junkie in an alley, just sleeping. And they would have these different kinds of dreams. Doing this is people that don't know how to deal with life, and instead of trying to correct their problems or solve their problems or work around or through their problems, they just take off and go to an opium den and smoke opium, or they just go to the bar and start getting drunk, or smoking pot or whatever. It's all the same thing. When you get off the drugs, you feel bad. Every drug is going to make you feel bad. There's no drugs that won't make you feel bad. And that, I suppose, is the mercy of the Lord. If there were drugs, plants growing that gave you euphoria with no bad, deteriorating side effects, people would just take them all the time and they wouldn't function right. In spite of that, people still do it. I mean, what I think alcoholics get there is they keep drinking so much that they wake up and their whole body is raked over. They got headaches and eyes and they can't stand the light and stuff like that. And then they take 1 or 2 shots of alcohol and boom, they feel much, much better. And the way it was explained to me by a former alcoholic was they can't go without alcohol in their body all the time. Doesn't have to be that much alcohol, but it has to be some alcohol. And that, eventually you ruin your liver and other body organs, It's it. So before anything could start with rebuilding Gaza, Hamas has to be disarmed. Now, Trump's got a pipe dream about being able to rebuild Gaza in the yellow zone where Israel is, but not where Hamas is. The problem is there's no country that has expressed any interest of fighting Hamas to force the disarmament. What they'll do to the construction crews is shake them down for money, kill them, steal their equipment, kick them out, whatever they want to do. So the answer to where this is going is veiled, but It's easy to understand. There's only one country that's willing to disarm Hamas. And that country is Israel. And has the capability of doing it and the motivation. Trump is not going to use American soldiers, and he's not getting Muslims to do it. He's basically drawing a blank. He says, oh, we got countries that are willing to do it. I don't think he does. You've got likely 30,000 Hamas and PIJ running around in Gaza. And before you're going to get them to throw the towel in, you're going to minimally have to kill about 20,000. And tell me what country other than Israel's going to do that. Why won't they do it? Because if they do, there's going to be protests. If it was in the 60s, Joan Baez would show up with her guitar and start singing songs about, let's give peace a chance and what's war good for, absolutely nothing, or whatever versions of that junk she would sing. But she's an old lady, and she doesn't go around and do that anymore. She's too old and she's worn out. I think she was still active 10, 15 years ago, but not anymore. And there's a few others, Joni Mitchell, and I don't remember all of them. They were all old ladies or dead. When I say old ladies, 75, 85, stuff like that. They're not active anymore, but what is active is pro-Palestinian protests where they get violent, and intifada jihadists like what they did at Bondi Beach. So if a country starts wiping out Hamas, they're going to have a lot of trouble in their country from other Muslims, blowing things up in their country, killing people and so forth. That's why they don't want to do it. They're not especially concerned about casualties because the chances are their casualties would be minimalistic or close to non-existent. They wouldn't have soldiers walking around there on foot as sniper bait. They wouldn't do that. They'd be in armored personnel carriers, armored Humvee type vehicles or tanks or mobile artillery. They would have air support from jets and helicopters. But let me ask you a question. Oh, they're going to have air support, huh? Okay, that makes sense. Sounds easy, right? All right, so they're going to bring their own helicopters and their own jets in. Where are they going to park them? Egypt's not going to let them do it, because then Egypt's a participant in this. Israel would let them park there, but they wouldn't. Israel would know everything about their aircraft. And Israel might even bug their aircraft to put explosive devices in them or something. I don't know. Well, maybe not, but they wouldn't want to park their aircraft in Israel. So there's a big flaw there. They could land tanks in Gaza with ships. They could get that done. They'd have to have shuttlecraft that, the boat would have to probably be a mile offshore or something like that. And where the water's deep enough, or half a mile. Then they would have to offload the tanks and the personnel carriers and the howitzers and other stuff they want to use onto ships that would ferry the load from the big ship to the shore, and then that could be done. Aircraft would be the problem. So they don't want to have their country go crazy with protests and intifada and possibly calling for the overthrow of the government. because they're going to say for the benefit of America and Israel, the big Satan and the little Satan, they're killing Muslims. So this regime has to be overthrown, and you're not going to see that. So the only answer they got is Israel, or leave Gaza alone. Now, I thought Trump would just leave Gaza alone, but now that he's got his zealousness back for the Trump hotel and casinos of Gaza with other friends of his as well, him and his friends are not going to want to build, $400 or $500 million casino resorts with Hamas running around. They're not going to do that. Hamas will shoot a missile at him and say, if you want to stay here, your rent to us is, $2 million a month to every hotel or something like that, right? Or we'll just shoot them with missiles. And if we keep shooting your hotels with missiles, nobody's going to come here. Things like that. It's ridiculous. Who's going to want to go there with Hamas there? And they're running around on streets with tanks, and nobody's going to want to go there. For what? They can go to Macau, where the crime rate in Macau is, I believe, quite low. Oh, they're going to rob you and cheat you in their casinos, all right. They're not honest, but the people don't know that. Or they'll go to Vegas, or they'll go to Atlantic City, or go to an Indian reservation, or whatever. Go to Europe casinos. They're not going to go to Gaza. But if Gaza's cleaned out of the vermin, they'll go to Gaza. They're not afraid of Israel next door, and they're not going to be afraid of Egypt next door, because tons of people go to Egypt on vacations. They think how cool it is to look at the demonic idols called the pyramids, and the tombs of these idiots. If you ever want to see something funny about Egypt and Tutankhamun, King Tut, but what Tutankhamun or Tutankhamun, something like that. In the late 70s, they ran tours around the world, exhibitions from Egypt, and they had, I think, Tut's body embalmed or something, and they had his coffin and jewelry from him with necklaces made out of gold, must have been like 2-3 pounds of gold, and things like this. And Tut was a real piece of work. The Egyptian royalty married their family. I mean, they married children even. They married their own children. They married brothers, sisters, cousins, stuff like this. They inbred so bad. They would come out with all sorts of deformities. And Tut, the child king, he died at a child's age, was an example of that. He had one leg shorter than the other, the hips were, they were deformed. I mean, badly deformed, And that was from, marrying like their children, or, sick things like this, right? To preserve their bloodline, the morons. And so Steve Martin, who I thought was one of the funniest comedians ever, I think he was much funnier than Robin Williams, who was funny unto his own right. Now, when I was in San Francisco a million years ago, I saw Steve Martin live, and at a place called the Boarding House. I think it was on Bush Street. It was a live show, and he was phenomenal. He got the whole audience to follow him out into the street, into the gutter where the cars were going late at night. And that's where he got us all out of the boarding house theater, and then said goodnight. The show's over nicely to us and went back inside. So, I mean, he was hilarious. I mean, he was so funny. I had no words for it. So he did a skit on King Tut. He's on like Saturday Night Live. You can watch it on YouTube from 1979 when the exhibition was going around. I actually did go see the exhibition. It was I can't remember what it was in. I don't think it was in the museums. I can't remember. I think it was on Gary Boulevard. I don't remember. I remember parking not far away and being able to go in. You had to wait online. I think you had to pay. It was back then probably $1.50, $2, $3, nothing. I went with a friend of mine, and they had a bunch of cops all around the place, but all these cops were young cops right out of the academy, and you walked around and you saw all this, and then you left. I thought it was interesting. They didn't have any pyramids or anything like that. It was clothing, the coffin, I think his embalmed body was there. I can't say for sure. And, there was clothing and other things, artifacts. It was ridiculous. I wasn't a believer at the time. So he did a stunt and he dressed himself up like King Tut. And he's walking around on the stage going, King Tut, And but when you see him do it, it's funny. He had a whole song made up about it, and he was saying the child king that killed himself for tourism. He was making fun of them, shipping his body around the world as a tourist attraction or something. And then he started saying, "Why are you so funky?" Now, funky's not a word used anymore, but people like a locker room of a ball team would stink, and they would say, "Oh, it's funky in here." So he was saying, why do you smell so bad? Well, it's because he's died thousands of years ago. And he really made a mockery of that, but it was hilarious. And I think after that, there was a group of women's band, I don't remember their name, and they had a song called Walk Like an Egyptian. That was in a few years later, probably in the 80s, and they were doing the same thing, walking like this. And it was, they had a really good music video for it, and it was a massive hit. So anyway, that was... Okay, so back to, if you ever want to see a hilarious comedian, go to Steve Martin. You can look him up on YouTube. There's lots of them. Now, the guy always played a banjo, even going back when he was a young guy. Today, Steve Martin's probably about 80, 70 or 80, probably 80 or more. He still does performances with the banjo. I don't think he was ever that good with the banjo. There were guys on Hee Haw and other shows that really surpassed him by the banjo immensely. So I've listened to his banjo, and it's like, unimpressive in my book. I mean, he's, got 50 years or so on the banjo, 60 years. So he definitely can play, but, Earl Scruggs and people like that, some of the other ones would really do a good job with the banjo. He can't. He doesn't have that skill. So I think the only reason he gets anywhere with the banjo is because his name, but he made his name as a comedian. He's not a nice guy. I ran into him at a restaurant once with a friend of mine, and we were going to go over there, and the waiter stopped us, so they have people running interference for him. Let's see, that was about 1980. And he was still a comedian in 1980. He made several movies, probably 6 movies, maybe 8. Hilarious. He made one movie. It was about Rick Moranis, I think, was in it. Something about a a store where it had a plant that wanted to eat people, and he was feeding it. It was a comedy, an idiot thing. And they had a segment in there that Steve Martin did where they called it, he had a song, I Am a Dentist. And, he was mocking dentistry, and he was a sadist. It was hilarious how he made fun of dentists. I'm really surprised the American Dental Association didn't sue him. It was that bad. I mean, he had pictures of girls coming in for braces, and he put stuff in their mouth like this, all kinds of wires and metal pipes and tubes. I mean, it was, of course, it's fictitious, but and then he was taking the laughing gas while he worked on people. I mean, they did not, he dressed in leather like some sadist guy, and he drove a Harley. I mean, it was just unbelievably hilarious, but such a mockery of dentists. It was about a 10, 15 minutes part of the movie. It was sheer insanity what that guy would do. He was really good. Oh, I hope this isn't somebody telling me we got trouble with the broadcast, but if they are telling me, I want to know. No, it's not that. Glad. It's something about hold on a second. What? Oh, I got this. Okay. So anyway, let's get back. So Trump's got no way of doing this except with Israel. That's the bottom line. Or he does it. Now, Trump is only going to do these kind of things when nobody else will do them. And even then, I don't think he wants to do them. Oh, what is this? First one was a delivery notice. This is probably the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So this could be the real plan that Trump runs around trying to hold conferences, invite people, and then keeps telling us that he can't get anybody to do it. Everybody's refusing. Okay. And then they, pin the tail on Hamas, which deserves it, and then Netanyahu does it, and Trump braces tries to, well, for one thing, he vetoes anything in the UN Security Council, and he tries to support Israel. All right. So now let's really let the cat out of the bag. As I told you for years, Biden and Trump now have a problem with BRiCS. That problem is oil. That problem is BRiCS wants to trade goods, food, clothing, machinery, grain, and oil and LNG, liquid natural gas, through the BRiCS monetary system, not using the US dollar. Now, the problem they got here is big. America's problem is big. Russia is a very substantial oil seller, and they're in BRiCS, a founding member. And Trump, as I've told you, was using Ukraine as a puppet, plus the EU, using Ukraine as a puppet to destroy Russian oil. And every time you turn around, oh yeah, Zelensky is hitting missile bases, military bases, and then oil storage facilities, oil refineries, oil this, oil that, also ships. I mean, he's fighting a war. He has to attack soldiers and ships and aircraft and drones, yeah. But every time you turn around, he's attacking Russians' oil. Okay? Can you win a war just on oil? No. Because if he runs out of his own oil, he could probably start buying it from somebody else or trading minerals for it or something. Okay? And he has so much oil, he can do his own oil too. So anyway, Zelensky's operating as a puppet of Trump and the European NATO, and attacking Russia's oil heavily. Iran, are they in BRiCS? Yes. I believe so. Yeah, they're in BRiCS. They're a substantial oil player. Yes. When Trump attacked Iran, he attacked very little of anything. What he attacked was the so-called nuclear sites, and that was it. And Israel attacked a number of military targets, even civilian targets. But Israel never really attacked Iran's ports, piers, oil storage facility at the port, Iran oil refineries, Iran pipelines, Iran oil fields, oil wells. Never attacked those. Neither did America. Why? Here you go. I'm going to make this out so you're going to understand it. Because Trump wants the Iranian oil and the Russian oil. Now, the situation with Russia is so far gone over 3 years of this war that I think Trump has resolved himself to the fact that he may just have to destroy most of Russia's oil and destroy much of Russia. By that I mean Ukraine, destroy it. So there's not much left of Russia, and Russia's no longer a threat with BRiCS because a lot of their oil has been destroyed. Now, a regime overthrow in Russia seems highly unlikely. What I think Trump wants to do is work some sort of peace deal with Russia to stop the fighting there, so he doesn't have to stay focused on Europe, and he can wander around the world getting oil from other places. Okay? See, who's in there that has a lot of oil now? Well, Iran, they've got a good amount of oil. Saudi Arabia, a huge amount of oil. UAE, good amount of oil. So Saudi, UAE, and Iran are BRiCS. That's a massive amount of oil. So how do we see Trump compensating? Well, Venezuela doesn't produce that much oil. Maybe 800,000 barrels a day with Maduro. But he's a abomination, transactional schmuck like the rest of them. So what Trump's figuring is, let's get rid of Maduro. Let's not demolish the country, okay? And we'll just get rid of him, and I'll put a puppet in there that is going to play ball with the American oil companies, my friends and supporters that I play golf with and come to have dinner with me at Mar-a-Lago. And of course, Trump's got a vested interest in this, or he wouldn't be that interested in it. So there's something in it for him personally. And Trump would you get something out of it. Okay. So the idea here is Trump keeps trying to scare Maduro, right? Overflights, jets, Navy ships. He took out another ship yesterday or something. And Maduro's trying to respond by sending destroyers, his Navy ships to escort the oil tankers. Well, an oil tank is not a drug boat, so what they took out was a drug boat. And like I told you, it seems most unlikely that Maduro would ever send his Navy to escort ships carrying cocaine and heroin and fentanyl. And, come on, he's not that dumb. That would turn everybody against him. He wouldn't, he'd be persona non grata, and it'd be over for him. He'd have to submit to Trump. There's no way that Trump's going to leave Maduro in charge. It's as stupid as leaving Hamas in charge. He's just going to regrow. You're not going to teach an old dog new tricks. Not likely. So Trump would take no chances on Maduro. If Maduro goes, 100, 200 people are going to go with him. His family, that's in the government, and friends. And a puppet will be put in place, and they'll have to watch the military. And Trump would probably put 5,000 or 10,000 soldiers in to Venezuela to protect the new government. So they would have tanks, armored personnel carrier, armored Humvees, missiles, mobile artillery, tanks, and they'd have helicopters and jets. And they'd probably be 2, maybe 3 Navy vessels floating around offshore that could fire missiles, probably about 64 missiles per. So, the emphasis would be protecting the capital where these guys are and stopping any kind of revolution. Now, revolution might pop up and militia may come out of the jungle and start attacking, but they're not going to be able to take the capital out. That's the important thing, is to keep the capital. Now, for how long does he have to keep the capital? Oh, maybe only 3 hours, probably 12 hours. That gives the Pentagon time to mobilize aircraft. They could probably secure an airport and land, 2,000-3,000 troops a day. They could support a attempted overthrow with militia, in a matter of hours. They could have 20, 30 planes there. and they have Navy ships there, and they'll mobilize everything. So he just needs to be able to hold the capital, and he needs to be able to hold an airport, and he needs to probably be able to hold the port where the warships are. So 5 or 10,000 soldiers would do it, I believe. Would they be expeditionary Marines? Probably a combination of Marines, expeditionary, regular Marines, Rangers, regular military. I don't know why they would put special forces there, unless they were still looking for people and manhunts and stuff. I don't think they would bother. That's it. So he gets the oil. Now, Maduro may, I've told you he may have BRiCS missiles. Now, if let's assume, let's dream, let's smoke the opium pipe, okay, and now let's have an opium dream, but it's not an opium dream, it's real, I'm just playing around with you. If China, Russia, North Korea gave, let's say China, gave Maduro ballistic missiles, hypersonic, that had a definite good range, say 12, 15, 1,800 miles or more. So Trump, I'm saying, probably suspects China gave him missiles. Russia's missiles work, but they're iffy. And I don't know how many Russia has. China probably got, a few thousand of them. So China's an ally, militarily and so forth, with Maduro. Venezuela, I should say. And if Trump's afraid of BRiCS, what did he do? He gave HIMARS and these other missiles to Taiwan just now, $11 billion sale. Probably they got 150, maybe even 200 missiles that could hit China mainland. So what's going on? Trump is telling them, okay, jackass, you want to put missiles in Venezuela and mess with me. Guess what? Now you got missiles in Taiwan. And he went to great pains to say, these missiles are given to Taiwan. Taiwan has full control over them. They belong to Taiwan, whatever Taiwan wants to do with them. Same thing China did with Maduro. Okay? Got it? So the thought is that if Maduro launches an BRiCS or that type of a missile made by China, they're going to get missiles in homeland China. And it'll look like Taiwan did it on their own. So let's get into the details on this so you could understand more about how important this is for Trump. If BRiCS is controlling the oil and trading the oil from UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia, that's a lot of oil. Okay? They could control the OPEC prices. So they could they could they could make OPEC. OPEC has one price for people trading in BRiCS, and if you're not trading in BRiCS, you're paying, $20, $30 a barrel more. So they're going to bust out Europe and America, and they want to break the dollar, because if the dollar is not really used by many countries anymore, then America is in deep doo-doo. Right now, their dollar is rather weak. Against the pound sterling, or the British pound, whatever they call it, it's not sterling anymore. It's about one British pound buys at $1.35 in America. And a euro is about $1.18. It buys $1.18. So the dollar's down, not drastically, but down. So they want to just break the back of America economically. That's what they're trying to do. They're having delays in getting this thing going because the countries in BRiCS, which is pushing 30 or something like that, they can't agree on how they want to do the currency. I want it with gold, I want it with, wheat and oil and LNG and, everything else, cotton, and who has these assets, and they want them to put gold into the BRiCS banks, which is in Beijing and Moscow, and they don't want to take a chance and take their gold reserves and put them there. So if they just declare that they got, $900 billion worth of gold, how the heck do we know it's true? Or they could have it and you get inspected and then they sell half of it a day later. Now, how are you going to know? So they're trying to get a hard asset-backed currency for BRiCS. And you see, they're having their trouble. God's not with them. Okay. If Trump could control the oil of, let's say, Venezuela, which is the largest oil reserves in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. Colombia also has oil, okay? And he's talking about going after Colombia. And then you have Iran, you have Iraq, which will have to fall. They're not a huge producer, but they're substantial. Jordan is on board with Trump. He doesn't have a problem with Jordan. Saudi Arabia is with BRiCS. He has a problem with Saudi Arabia. Oman is probably with BRiCS, definitely with Iran. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, not in BRiCS. So he's got so much people that'll play ball with him. He could be immune from a play by OPEC to raise prices, because he doesn't have to listen to them. So the other thing is Trump's got his tariffs coming in. And if Trump is controlling this oil, there's two big, huge countries in the world that need to gobble up oil in insane quantities to keep themselves functioning as an industrial nation, and that's India and China. Okay? And they make up 1/3 of the population. So this puts Trump not only in the driver's seat with the EU, which it would do, and of course, the America itself, it gets 1/3 of the world's population plus already. So it's probably up to 45-50% of the world's population is being controlled by Trump's oil. So if they're not going to play ball with Trump and trade and tariffs and stuff like that, Trump starts pinching their oil pipeline. They get less and less. So he's weaponizing oil. And that's one of the ways he intends to make America great again. But wait, we're going to get into the real dastardly stuff. I've showed you recently that Israel's getting all sorts of business deals. $34 billion from Egypt with LNG, massive weapons sales, I think $6 billion to Germany, and a few other countries. These huge chunks of business are coming into Israel all at the same time. What's going on? The great hammer of the whole earth, Trump, America, is paying Israel back. Why? For what? Israel is the bulldog, the pit bull that fights for Trump. This goes back to 2023. Biden didn't want anything to do with Israel, and then all of a sudden he opens up in September 2023. Yeah, good old Netanyahu could come here anytime he wants. And then a few days later, Netanyahu goes to visit the White House. He comes back to Israel on the 23rd of September 2023. October 7th happened about 2 weeks after that. Coincidence? I've covered this so many times. Me and a good 1 million or 2 million Israelis are not impressed with this being a coincidence, okay? A lot of people, in my opinion, at least 1 million. And we keep trying to get an independent investigation, and Netanyahu keeps trying to shut it down. Well, what's that tell you? Well, it's like the redacting of the Epstein documents. Why are they redacting it if they're not trying to hide something, you know? Okay. So what did they do? Well, with Biden, BRiCS was threatening America openly that we're going to be trading oil, LNG, and also, grain and, orange juice pulp and pork bellies. Well, they're Muslims, they probably wouldn't do that. Beef, chicken, cotton, linen, all off the US dollar through the BRiCS payment system, which they said was going to be secured by hard assets, gold being one of them. All right. They never got it working right, but they're still trying, because if they get it going, they can destroy America. Economically, they'd never let America join BRiCS. So along comes Iran. And who were Iran's proxies? Yemen, Iraq, Syria at that time, Gaza, and Lebanon. Bunch of them. So Biden's administration knew they had to get rid of these jerks, or bring them under the dominion of the United States, so economic destruction doesn't fall on America. What if Iran, by threat, gets Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Jordan, Saudi Arabia to join BRiCS. And then BRiCS starts dictating the price to OPEC, which they could do because OPEC would basically be BRiCS. So OPEC would fall away and it would be all BRiCS. They would just say you can't be in BRiCS if you're going to listen to OPEC, you know. So they just, if you're not in BRiCS, you don't pay $60 a barrel for crude, you pay $120. So they break them out. They break Europe and they break South America, Central America, and they break United States. And now they broke America and Europe. When you break Europe, you broke NATO. So now America's hanging out there in the breeze. So the Biden administration realized they got a problem. So you got to get rid of, to stop Russia and China, you got to control the Middle East is what hold on a second. Your phone's not on the air, Becca.
I got it, thank you.
You found it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was talking to Google anyway. Thank you.
All right. So you see, Trump got put into this, Biden started it. Before they could get rid of Iran, they had to get rid of the proxies. If Iran had Gaza in place, Hezbollah in place, Iraq in place, Syria in place, the Houthis, Yemen in place, and themselves in place, and they decided to rise up against the Middle East while Russia was going to go after NATO, what would happen is they would attack all these oil-producing countries in the Middle East that wouldn't play ball with Iran. So in other words, Iraq can easily attack Kuwait. Kuwait's a nothing. But Trump has 5,000 soldiers there, so that's a complication. Okay, Bahrain and Qatar could easily have hell rain down on it from Iran missiles. The UAE already submitted to BRiCS, so leave them alone. Oman, they're friendly with Iran, leave them alone. Jordan, they gotta go. So they attack Jordan oil or overthrow Jordan with the crazy jihadists living in Jordan. And Saudi Arabia either submits or they blow them up. But since Saudi Arabia joined BRiCS, leave them alone. So they can put Jordan in BRiCS and Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, you know, and just do it more quietly, right? If you don't submit, then our proxies come kill you. Okay? The Houthis could easily attack Saudi Arabia, their oil refineries. They've done it twice in the past. They've destroyed the Aramco facility. It had to get rebuilt, but they never really hit it once. Big time. Once was 1 missile, another time was 2. What if they hit it with 9 missiles? Oh, it takes a year to rebuild it then, right? Then what happens if Aramco goes down for a long period of time? What happens? Well, $120, $150 a barrel is what happens instead of $60. So now instead of paying, let's say in America, $3, you're paying $6.75 for gas. It's bad. The home heating oil goes up. Everything is bad for that. All right. Well, the cost of everything, food, clothing, travel, everything goes up because everything moves by airplane, train, or truck, or boat, and they all use gas. Aviation fuel, diesel fuel, this, that, it's all using gas. So they're beginning to break the back of America. Now, so they figured they needed to get rid of the proxies before they take care of Iran. So Trump got nervous when the fight with Iran was going on. Too many missiles were landing in Israel. They got a missile in on Qatar, and Trump was really afraid they were going to start hitting Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and go for the oil refineries, the ports, and the piers with the oil storage, and just wreck the oil industry. Iran still has aspirations about that, and they're confiscating ships and their oil, and they're playing games like that, and Trump is afraid to go after them, so he's just watching it carefully. Trump is laying out his own agenda, and he's going after the country with the most oil reserves in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia, and that's Venezuela. That's where he's starting. So he thinks big, and he's starting out at the right place, the biggest reserve. So if they get the Americans in there to get Venezuela running, Venezuela might be able to easily generate 6 million barrels or 9 million barrels a day or something like that. But they need to get some big honking oil refineries set up down there. So Trump wants a lot of oil that he controls that BRiCS can't control. That way, the amount of damage that BRiCS does against America and Europe is not significant, which means it's going to scare the other countries because Trump's going to put double tariffs on them and stuff like that, or 100% tariff. So if they're selling something to America for $17, they're going to have a tariff of $17, so it's going to cost $34. They'll put them out of business in America. Then after he got involved with Venezuela, where did he go from there? He went to Colombia. He's starting up with Colombia. They got a good amount of oil too. And they're right next door. So he doesn't have to redeploy military somewhere else. The military is basically already there. You understand? So Colombia's had it. So what he's trying to do is he doesn't want to go in there and play, West Side Story with the jets and the wars. He doesn't want that. He wants to make life so nervous for Maduro. Believe me, Maduro's sleeping in different places every night, like Saddam Hussein was. And Maduro, every time, he hears a noise, he thinks it's the Delta Forces or the Recon Marines or SEALs or somebody coming to kill him or kidnap him. Okay? He might have soldiers that can do the same physical feats as, say, a Recon Marine or a Navy SEAL in terms of putting on a 60-pound back, a pack and walking, 30, 40 miles and then laying in a hospital bed for a week to recover with IV and having your feet elevated and all kinds of salve and anti-inflammatories. That's not, I mean, that's America does that and other countries copy it. But, in reality, it's an idiot way, to do things. You think Israel does things like that? Not to that extent. They do take them on a walk, and they walk them in the desert where they hold their hand on the guy or the gal in front of them and they sleep when they walk. It's a funny kind of sleep, but they don't go that nuts. I've never heard anybody putting a 60-pound pack on and going 40 miles with it, walking. I never heard that. And what do you want to cripple your soldiers for? If you have to walk 40 miles with a 60-pound pack in war, that's not that's a very unrealistic war, and it probably will never happen. What do you want to prepare for that? I mean, I could see a 10-mile, but that's putting the pack on and walking 3 hours or something like that, or 4 hours, or 2.5 hours, or whatever, that I could see. That might have some real value in a war situation. And, but take the FBI. You know how long when they're at the academy, they have their agents in the school run? They run 2 miles. I believe 8-minute miles, something like that. Or I think it's even 8.5 or something like that. They don't push them for 6-minute miles, I mean, how many crooks that they're going to chase are going to do a 6-minute mile? It's ridiculous. The physical therapy stuff has, the physical has its value. So, Maduro might have guys that can do the 40-mile hike, and they could do 75 strict push-ups, and they could do 12 strict chin-ups, and they could do all this stuff, run obstacle courses. But so what? They don't have the money to get all the equipment that the SEALs and the Green Berets and they have. So it doesn't do much. You could teach them knife fighting. You could teach them pistol shooting at 100 yards. But so what? It's not going to do anything. It's not, if they're going to get Maduro, they'll probably get him with a drone or a big missile or something, right? So if he has 400 or 500 soldiers surrounding his house, which is definitely going to stop a special forces team of 8 guys from getting in. If they got that many soldiers there, they're going to need. How are they going to get through? They're not. Unless they're going to do something really crazy and exotic, like dig a tunnel miles away and then come up and come through the guy's bedroom at night or something. But I've never heard of that being done. So they're not going to do that. They're going to send drones or missiles and blow them up. Or a bomber. They're not going to, that's how we got the head of the Lebanon guy. We blew him up. Even though he was very far underground, we blew him up. So Maduro's nerves are shot. You understand? And his underlings, the high-level ones, are also, their nerves are shot because they're afraid of targeted assassinations. So what he's trying to do is wear them out. Why? What does he do if he starts landing with the Marines, with air support and all that, and Maduro has 500-pound, satchels of explosives by the oil refineries, and he just takes a cell phone and dials a certain number, hits the send button, it counts to 10, and then the oil refineries are blown up and on fire. So to get the production of the oil up, you're probably looking at a year. And what if he burns the oil wells at the same time? And the storage tanks at the same time? It's still worthwhile for Trump to take control of the place, but Orishnik missiles and the types of these missiles is a bad problem. And it could be that that's Revelation 18. It could be. But we don't know that for sure. Revelation 18 could be fire and brimstone from Jehovah or another country. So the United States is under threat of destruction from BRiCS. Economic destruction is destruction of the United States. So they're countering BRiCS. So what he wants to do is he wants to use Israel to conquer the Middle East for him. Has America done this? Yes. Hamas, what do? They're there. They've got probably RPGs, maybe some other shoulder-fired anti-tank missiles. They probably have various kinds of machine guns and AK-47s and pistols. And not much of anything else. I don't think they got any missiles anymore. So they're not hurting anybody. They're just in the way. What are they in the way of? The oil? No, they're in the way of the Trump casino resorts of Gaza. Okay, that's what in the way of. And he's got time when it comes to that. But he needed them taken out so they didn't start running wild through the Middle East. Like, what is running wild? Well, they could start up with other countries. Jordan, oil there. Saudi Arabia, oil there. Hamas working with the Houthis to not just blow up the Saudi oil, but to take it over. Much better for them. The United States is facing destruction from BRiCS. Now, let's go through some of this stuff so you understand. Let's go through who are the BRiCS oil countries now. In other words, countries currently in BRiCS that have a good amount of oil. Russia, we know that. They're in the top 3 oil producer globally, 9 to 11 million barrels a day. They have huge reserves in Siberia and in the Arctic. All right, they also have LNG. All right, they have minerals too, but we're not dealing with that. Trump's not critically worried about the minerals. He likes the minerals. That's why he did a deal with Ukraine, but it doesn't seem to be as critical. Saudi Arabia, they're in. They're number 2, 9 to 12 million barrels. They have the world's largest spare production facilities or capacities. So you could have oil reserves, that's oil in the ground, but then you got to get into, pumping the oil out, called an oil well, and refineries. Okay, China. Believe it or not, China makes 4 million barrels a day of oil. They're a large producer, but the problem is their consumption needs far excel their production capability. So they're still desperate for oil. Brazil, 3.5 to 4 million barrels a day. So is Venezuela and Colombia near Brazil? Close enough. In other words, Trump doesn't have to redeploy the military when he's already got so much down there. He has to reposition them maybe, but not exactly redeploy. And then when he goes after Brazil, he would have boots on the ground in Colombia and Venezuela to some extent anyway. He could set up bases near there. Let me look at a map very quickly here. Can't read nothing on that map. Well, Colombia does have a border with Brazil. Not a huge border, but a border. Venezuela has a nice border with Brazil, good size. And the problem, well, you have access into Brazil from Colombia and Venezuela, but he would still need to deploy ships. Not so different than where Venezuela is. He just has to do repositioning, but not that big a deal. Uh, oh, he's got his eyes on Brazil. Okay, so, all right, let me get back in here. So Brazil has enough oil to make it very, very interesting. Very interesting. But he's on a whole campaign. You see, he can't use Israel to do this in this part of the world because Israel doesn't work in that part of the world. Israel's just not set up for it. Okay. So the other one is the UAE, which is a moderate oil producer, 3 to 4 million barrels a day. And we go to Iran, which is the same as the UAE, 3 to 4 million barrels a day. And I think the reason it's down to that level is because of the sanctions. The other members of BRiCS that are substantial that are not oil producers, which means they're oil consumers, are India. It has a very tiny oil production facilities, very small, and it's a massive user or importer. South Africa, nothing to speak of with oil. Egypt, modest producer, nothing great. Ethiopia, minimal oil, and Argentina, it's growing, but it's not yet a major. But Argentina and Trump seem to be pretty buddy-buddy. So I don't think you'll see Argentina in BRiCS. I think they've already declined that already with the new leader. So they have declined it, you know. BRiCS is now, today, controlling 40% of global oil production. It includes the two big players, Russia and Saudi Arabia. And, you know, controlling OPEC and oil prices is a real problem. So Trump needs to deal with the Middle East oil, which is huge, and he needed Israel. So Israel finished off Hamas, but they're still there. Hezbollah has been basically finished off, but they're still there. Syria, Assad ran away, so Iran's, you know, Russia and Iran were friends with Assad. So Trump is pulling the new head of Syria, the Al Qaeda ISIS guy with a new paint job, a brutal, murdering bum. But Trump's looking the other way and making believe he's a nice guy because he's not going to get involved with BRiCS, and America is running their oil, and he's not kicking against it. So Trump's happy. I got a good puppet here. Attaboy, attaboy, you know. All right. So Israel is being played as a chump, and Netanyahu knows exactly what's going on. Why did Netanyahu lower the guard on the border on October 7th, which I believe he did, in my opinion? Okay. Why did that happen right after he saw Biden and all that? Because he was told what needs to happen. And they said, "Are you in?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm in." You know? So he, they needed to get an excuse to get Israel riled up to carry on this big war. What do you mean a big war? Who do they got to get? Well, they got to get Gaza. They got to get Syria, which happened by Bashar Assad running away. They got to get Lebanon, which they did. They got to get Iraq, which was not done. They got to get Yemen. There's problems in Jordan that may be containable in the eyes of America. And they got to get Iran. That's a big job. So you need an alibi story to get Israel riled up to go after all these characters, and they got it. They dropped the guard. Hamas came in, did the massacre. Then Israel rose up and hammered him into the ground, but not complete annihilation. But now Trump is saying, no, 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 we need a complete annihilation in Gaza because I got a project over there. I want to do Trump resorts and casinos in Gaza. I want that. And I want my family to get in on this and my friends to get in on this and all of that, right? You got 25 miles of beachfront property in the Mediterranean, so it's a real payday, okay? And that, Trump wants that, okay? And he can't leave Gaza there to rise up again another day. He's smart enough to realize that, so Gaza got to go. Hezbollah, that's another story. If he can get the Lebanese government to have some guts and run their own country, well, then we just disarm Hezbollah and forget about those idiots, right? Syria, he's got a beautiful puppet situation going over there, right? Iraq, that's a problem child with Iran. It's Elam. They both get destroyed. They're the same country. They're in Jeremiah 49, but Trump doesn't believe in prophecy. So once the puppets are gone, then Israel will go after Iran. And that's what's happening December 28th. Trump's Netanyahu's going down there with strike packages to get approved by Trump and the Pentagon. But the last time we started up with them in Iran, 17% of their missiles went through. That was back in June, so you got 6 months later. Do I think Israel improved the effectiveness of their missile defenses between then and now? Yes. What do I think? They might have got it down to 10% penetration or even 7 or 5% penetration. So some missiles will get through. Now, maybe it's even higher because they've got Arrow 2 and 3, maybe 4 even. They got the Arrow, they got the David Sling, they got the Iron Dome, which I understand has been constantly improving. So it's probably it's probably noticeably better against Iranian missiles than it was 6 months ago. But what has Iran done to improve their missiles? You see, it's cat and mouse. It keeps going on. Okay, let's go now. The Iron Beam is supposed to be in use any day now, any day before the very end of December. Now, they got a 100 kilowatt Iron Beam and they got a 300. And the 300 can be used against hypersonic ballistic missiles because it reaches out much further with that extra power. And it can take down these hypersonic ballistic missiles. So how many of those do we have? I don't know. How many of the 100 and 300 watts do we have? I don't know. I don't know any of that. They're not talking. When they start deploying them, we'll get an idea, but we don't know. So maybe, you know, Netanyahu's looking at, if they're going to talk about strike packages the end of December, they're probably not going to strike till mid or late January. Minimally mid-January. He's got to talk it out with Trump and the Pentagon, then come back to Israel, talk it out with the equivalent of the Pentagon in Israel, and then they got to work it out with the Pentagon. So you're probably even looking 3-4 weeks into January. Okay. So they've got to deal with Iraq. Did you notice that they just found a tunnel from Iraq? So they're prepping from Iraq into Syria, a tunnel. They're prepping for that. So they want to get rid of Iran. Iran's a pain in the neck. They're starting to grab ships. There's a big threat of closing the Persian Gulf, which will cause oil prices to go, I would say, anywhere from 120 to 500 a barrel. Could you imagine $500 a barrel? Gas in America would be like $18 a gallon or something like that. A loaf of bread would probably go up 10 cents just on the fuel. But every item in the supermarket you buy is going to go up by 10 cents. Maybe 15 cents. It's crazy. They'll raise the price of postage. Everything will go up. So Trump's worried about that. Okay. Now, Yemen is still there, but Israel's threatening to get Yemen. So there might be an attack on Yemen that's also got strike packages being approved by Trump that Netanyahu's not going to talk about because he wants everybody focused on Iran. But I think it would be more intelligent to take down Yemen. But it might need to happen that if they start taking down Yemen, Iran may counterattack right away. They don't want that. So maybe they take Yemen and Iran down at the same time. Could be. Maybe America would actually help take Iran down. I don't know. See, they got a problem. Iran can shut the Persian Gulf. Iran and the Houthis can attack oil refineries in other countries, and they can run the oil up through the roof at very high prices and break the West, where they can go sell oil to their friends at lower prices. And that's what's going on. And that's why Israel's being rewarded with all these, multi-billion-dollar business transactions. Israel's getting paid back for being the pit bull. And there's going to be more and more paybacks. And that's why Trump is screaming Abrahamic Accords, because he wants to pay Israel back and give them more money from these countries, and Saudi Arabia won't do it. What Saudi Arabia would want from Israel is predominantly weapons, and that would be multi-billion-dollar contracts from Saudi Arabia. But Saudis won't play ball. They buy some weapons from Israel, but it's under the table. It's very quiet. I'll take a break and then we'll get through the Bible implications of this, which is the most important. I'll be back in a minute. I want to look something up real quick. All right. I want to give you an example. The Balfour Declaration in 1917. Churchill was in charge of it, and he was supposed to give more land to Israel than he did. He got drunk the night before and admitted it and reduced it, giving Syria more land. So anyway, when this happened, the King of Great Britain, the King of England, whatever he called himself then, said, I give you people of England a present for Christmas. I give you Jerusalem. That was Christmas 1917. When did the British Empire start to shrink? 1918. Okay? A few weeks later. They were getting into a lot of problems militarily, economically. 1922, most of Ireland left the UK as the Irish Free State. That was a pretty substantial loss right in their home. Now, we could talk about World War II, where Great Britain took a terrible beating from bombing and V-1 and V-2 missiles from Germany. Tremendous bombings. A lot of loss. People dead. The army, British Army, their economy was really bad. Then that takes us to 1947. And they were abusing Israel again, putting quotas on Israel for people fleeing the concentration camps in 1938, 39, 40, 41. turning them away, shooting them with naval rifles, artillery from Navy ships. Keeping the Jews out of Israel so Hitler could kill them. Calling it Palestine back then. All right? Horrible. Then they got blasted in World War II. And then what? 1947, they lost Pakistan, and India. They became independent. The Suez Canal crisis in 1956 showed that Israel could no longer act independently as an empire. That was considered to be the end of their imperial or their royal family reign. So what happened? Churchill was very nasty towards Israel, the Balfour Declaration geography. Then the king goes around claiming Jerusalem, saying, I give you people of Great Britain a Christmas present. I give you Jerusalem. From that point on, it was this. Okay? They kept the Jews out of Israel, called Palestine. And they got a real beating from Hitler. Then what? In 1947, Pakistan and India. I think Pakistan was broken off from India or something like that. Left the empire. And they made a lot of money off of these places. Okay? Now, right after that happened, what did they do? Well, they started planning to get out of Israel and get themselves out of the mandate from the UN, which they were very mean and cruel to the Jews with during World War II. And even after, they were stopping the Jews from coming. After World War II, Jews were homeless, scattered, and they were going back to Israel, and they were fighting it. They were fighting Jehovah's plan for Israel. They were playing games, starting with, I give you Jerusalem, that schmuck king. Okay? The sun never sets on the British Empire became a thing of the past. Probably some sort of sick play on words with the sun god Tammuz, but that's another story. So when was it in, I believe, May of 1948, they got out, May 15th, I think it was, and they got out of Israel, and Israel declared independence with the UN and stuff like that. Of course, Israel was declaring independence against nobody. How could they declare independence against Israel when the British said, we finished our term with the mandate over Palestine with the UN, and we're out of there lock, stock, and barrel, we're finished and done. So there was nobody for Israel to declare independence from, was there? So why did they do that? Because the nations didn't have enough yet, okay? So what they were doing is they were setting Israel up for destruction. If you check this with Google, you'll find that America and the UN put embargoes on Israel, that Israel couldn't buy weapons, knowing the Arabs were going to kill them as soon as Great Britain left. The Arabs weren't going to start up with Great Britain. Great Britain still had all kinds of aircraft and naval vessels left over from World War II, and they didn't want to find out how dangerous those weapons were. Okay. Did Hitler kill the Arabs? No. Satan's chosen people. Okay, so Great Britain is still, okay, so because of the embargo of weapons, which America had their own embargo, the Arabs were getting weapons from Russia, good old Russia again. Recompenses is working on Russia, if you haven't noticed. And the Brits let all kinds of Muslims come into their country, and now they're paying a bad price for this, and they're facing a lot of uprising from the people of Great Britain that realize how stupid it is to bring the Muzzies in when they're just going to rape, plunder, and kill them. It's absurd. So they're standing up against the government. And that Andrew is just another transactional abomination. That's all he is. Or what do they call him? Philip, or I don't know, whoever the king of Israel, of America, of Great Britain is. Okay. So since 1948, the nations have tried to get rid of Israel repeatedly. And who have they used to do it? The Muzzies. And how have they done? Every time they fail. Israel survives and gets a win. And what do? They make Israel give the land back. Sinai Peninsula, then Gaza. Now they're working on the West Bank. After they finish with the West Bank, they'll work on something else. It's like, okay, you keep going, okay? So, the beast and Satan and Trump are finally, not so much Trump, they finally realized they can't use the Arabs to do this. It doesn't work because God intervenes. So in the days of Joe Biden, they came up with an idea. Let's turn this thing around on God and take his Israel and use it for our own gain. And instead of having the Arabs attack and destroy Israel, which never worked, let's corrupt Israel with money, like Trump with all the big purchases from companies recently, right? Let's corrupt Israel economically so they start getting very concerned about their Cadillacs, like America, their Rolexes, their Chanel purses, their Louis Vuitton, their Carolina Herrera, their Tom Ford, all that crap, right? Designer furniture, travels. We've even got a cruise line in Israel now. But I think it has one ship, it might have two. Maybe it does have two. But they're using old ships, like 20, 25 years old, but they refurbish them. They're not a threat for sinking. But their capacity is small, like, 15, 1,800 people. And they have jacuzzis and they have indoor pool, maybe, and usually just an outside pool, not indoor. But maybe they have I doubt it. They're probably running at about 40 to 50,000 tons, where the very modern big cruise ships are running at up to, maybe 180 to 200 tons, to 180,000 to 200,000. Actually, they go to 250,000 tons. So these newer, more modern boats, they have indoor pools, outdoor pools, they have movie theaters that you wouldn't find on an older boat. You would have a show place, a place where they have live shows, and they probably seat 600 or 800 people, maybe 500, something like that. They'll have 15 bars, and some of the bars will have live music and dancing and different things like that. They'll have a day camp for the kids. They might have a basketball court. They might have one of those television-looking computerized golf driving ranges that you just shoot a golf ball into a net, basically. They'll have a running or jogging or walking path on the top deck, on the Lido deck, or maybe one higher than the Lido deck, actually. Most of the cabins will not have a balcony. Very few will have balconies, probably the suites. They'll have the inside cabins, they'll have cabins with portholes, usually 2 portholes, and they're big like this. And they're nice because the inside cabins get no light. So you have a lot of trouble waking up in them. I'm telling you, I've done it only 2 or 3 times. It was very hard to wake up. You sleep too much. And what do you want to sleep 11, 12 hours on your cruise for? That's stupid, 6, 7 hours is fine, And then they have inside cabins, which you get daylight, so it makes a big difference, but you don't get the fresh air. So you're breathing in the air-conditioned piped in air. Not fun. But you could get a suite and you'll have that. So there's simplistic cruise ships. They're more or less for going to a destination, getting off at the destination, taking a tour, walking around, doing something, and then coming back to the boat to eat, and then go lay out by the pool and get a tan and go to the gym, go to the jacuzzi, go for the health club or the beauty parlor, because they'll have all of that stuff. And then go take a shower, rest, or whatever, and go for dinner. And then after dinner, go see the show. And that's it for your day, right? So they're not going to have any really good day camp for the kids. They're not going to have any go-kart track. They're not going to have rock climbing. They're not going to have a wave pool. They're not going to have a basketball court. They're not going to have miniature golf. They're not going to have water slides. They likely won't have a kids' wet area with sprinklers in the little pool. They might not, and that kind of thing. They'll have a Lido deck with the food, you know. So actually, Israel has, I think, 2 ships now. They go into the Mediterranean. I think they go 3-day and 4-day, but I think they're also doing a week tour or something. I can't remember, but they're old ships. They're not nice ships. They're not going to be that much fun. They're going to have everything in Hebrew. If you tell them you want English, they'll probably have sections in the dining room where they'll have English. Most of the workers are not going to be from Israel, so they're going to have, oh no, this boat they would be mostly from Israel, but they'll have speakers. They'll have people with French and Italian, maybe German, Spanish for sure, and English for sure. They'll probably have the menu in multiple languages. So if you go to the dining room, you'll be able to order probably in 3 languages, 4 languages. The waiter might ask you to show you what you want. You have to point to it, because you'll point to it in Spanish or English, and he'll read it in Hebrew. When you go for the like at the Lido deck, they give food away by the swimming pool. So what do you they'll know hot dog, pizza, hamburger, fries. They'll know that. They'll have a buffet. I don't know how good it'll be. I don't know how good the food would be. First of all, it'll be kosher, so that's going to wreck the food tremendously right there, because they take the meat and they wash it with water. Then they put salt on it for a while, big pieces of salt, not the healthy salt. Then they wash it off again. Then they resalt it and they wash it again. So the meat has very little flavor left, and it's tough. A cruel joke to the Israelis. There's nothing in the Bible that talks about this. Do they do that with the fish? I think so. I'm not sure. Fish don't have that much blood in the meat, but I think they do. So the food experience is not going to be a very good one. And they go to Mediterranean ports, and that would be fine. You wouldn't have any problem. It's not very expensive, but I wouldn't suggest going on it. These older boats are nothing like the new ones. It probably has gyros on it. I started cruising and went on boats built in the 1988, 90 era, and they were usually about 50, 67. No, they were about 70 Carnival, about 70,000 tons. They were about 800 to 900 feet, but they didn't have that many decks. They had maybe, 8, 9 decks, not 20 like they have today. Then they have gardens today. They got merry-go-rounds on the boats. They got all kinds of stuff. I mean, you don't see any of this stuff on the old boats, and nowhere near as much fun. The older boats are good if your idea of a cruise is I want to get out in the warm water and I want to be in the sun. I want to get up in the morning and I want to go take a jog or walk fast on the track. And I used to do that with my shirt off, wearing shorts, so I'd get a tan. And then I would usually, if I was going to use the gym, I would go to the gym either before or after and work out on the machines. And then I would go take a shower and go eat. Sometimes, if I was worked out a lot, I was starving, I would just go eat before the shower. And then when I was finished, if I was going to get off the boat at the stop, I would get off for a few hours and come back in time for before 2 o'clock so I could eat the good lunch instead of having pizza and salad for lunch or something like that. I'd want to hit the buffet or the dining room. And then, you could read. I used to like to read. I didn't like to stay, like if I walked in the sun on the walking path, that was enough. 40 minutes, 35 minutes or something was plenty of sun for the day. So I would sit out there and try to get a chaise chair where I wasn't in the sun. And there's a lot of places you learn after your cruise where you can go off on little nooks and crannies, just get a chaise and carry it over there and lay down and read magazines. Usually I used to bring magazines with me, read magazines or something. Or you got internet, you could be on the internet, but you're not going to see much outside in that bright sunlight. The sun comes and bounces off the water at you and comes down from above. And you burn crisp so fast your head will spin. Okay. 45 minutes is about it. Now, if you come from a place like San Diego or Miami and you're in the sun all the time with, sunbathing type of thing, well, and you got a tan and you've been out in the sun 30 days before you took the cruise, maybe not consecutive, but then you can play games and stay out in the sun longer. But you got to remember, you're getting a double dose. It's bouncing off the water and hitting you and coming down from above and hitting you. It's brutal. And you need good sunglasses usually, you know. And then but the buffets were huge, they'd have like 90 items or more. They'd have 120 maybe. You would see maybe 40, 50 items on a small boat, you know. You wouldn't get a balcony cabin unless you got a suite, which wouldn't be that expensive. If you did get a suite, it would be really a nice suite. It'd be large and a big balcony, and you'd have a good time with that. But they're nowhere near as much fun as the big boats. Also, when you get on the big boats, there's no sensation of being on a boat. When you get to about 140, 150,000 tons, it's very difficult to even know you're on a boat. They're so wide, you know. They get to be like 120, 140 feet wide. They have 20 decks up. You have an atrium that's maybe 12 decks or more even. I don't know. 10 decks, 12 decks, huge atrium, you know. You got lots of elevators going up and down made out of glass. You got inside elevators, outside elevators. We have staircases. It'll be fun, and redemption, if cruise ships still exist, it'd be fun. I would enjoy that, but in the old body now, it's not that much fun. When I was younger and I used to work out a lot, and I would be doing squats and, kettlebells and stuff like that. And, I'd go on these boats and they'd say, oh, I don't want to wait for the elevator. The biggest boat I was ever on was about 147,000 tons. I was on that one a few times. I find I was on some 90,000 ton boats, and they're pretty darn good, but you're still aware of being on a boat. You know, at about 150,000 tons, I mean, if you look at the water, you know you're on a boat. But if you're not looking, you don't feel it. You don't have this, I got to walk down the hall and hold on to the rail. You get that on 90,000 tons. You get that. Now, when you're on a 70 or 50,000 ton boat, you really get it. I mean, you know, you're really hanging on sometimes. You know, you're walking, you're swaying, you know. So, anyway, so that's what they're doing. Biden started it, and Trump is finishing it. So when you hear about Trump run around Dirty Joe or criminal Biden, he's just making that up for your benefit. He's fulfilling the same agenda that Biden was fulfilling, and that is they've got to react against BRiCS. And BRiCS and the Muslim countries and the other countries are aware of this. The Muslims got control over a substantial amount of oil. Now, BRiCS is not Muslim. Russia's not Muslim. India's not Muslim. China's not Muslim. Brazil's not Muslim. South Africa's not Muslim, and on and on. So it's not a Muslim organization, but it's definitely anti-American, okay? And they want to bust America out economically so America doesn't dictate to them as the hammer of the whole earth or the great voice in Jeremiah 50:51. They want it out from under that. They don't want that anymore. They want nothing to do with that kind of stuff, okay? Let me take a look at this for a second. They don't want any of that. Okay? They want to be free of America and those kind of policies. And the Muslim states want to be free of it. So they'll turn on America. And this thing that America's doing now, getting the oil, is going to push Zechariah 12. It's scaring the daylights out of China, because what do they do if Trump completes this? What's China do? It can't get oil from Venezuela, maybe Brazil, while that's around. It can't use Iranian oil. It can't use Russian oil. It won't get from Saudi Arabia, blah, blah, blah. What do? Oh, I mean, they got oil, but they're not able, Iran's not able to sell it, so China's not able to buy it. Or if China has to buy it, and, you know, they're going to have to pay a high price, more than they want to pay. And they'll probably have to pay for it in US dollars. So you see, Trump will sell them the oil or arrange for somebody else to do it in US dollars. Now they got China and India using US dollars to buy oil and liquid natural, you know, LNG, right? But then Trump's going to dictate to India and China what the tariffs are going to be. And if they don't dance to Trump's music on the tariffs, the oil's going to disappear. So they're going to dance to Trump's music, and Trump's going to be controlling them economically. What they do in their own country inside, if they want to throw people off a roof, or they want to put people in jail for not wearing black rags over their head, he doesn't care. It doesn't affect them. He wants economic control over them. So if he gets economic control over India and China, that's a third of the world that he doesn't have economic control over now. And that's make America great again. Of course, with me, it's not MAGA, it's MIGA, make Israel great again. Okay, should be with you too. As believers, that's where you wind up. So they're getting closer and closer to getting rid of Trump. Look, I'm telling you what's going on. Some of them probably know what's going on also. I've never seen anybody in any social media describe this the way I just described it to you. I did not copy this from anybody. I got it from nobody. I didn't get it from any magazine article or internet, social media, or any kind of video or anything like that. I believe I got this from the Lord. And that's what they're up to. And all the pieces point to it. Okay? And Trump is playing Israel for suckers, just like the King of England tried it. And he lost his empire, and Trump's going to lose his empire. America's going down. America's in a snare, not Trump, America. So if Trump's gone and Vance comes in, it's America. Now, I think there's a high probability that this Epstein thing will be the end of Trump. Did the Lord show me that? Not that I could recall. I just looked at it. No, I don't believe he did. I looked at it and it could be. And the country that does evil in our sight in Israel could, it doesn't look like Trump's running on that path, but Vance is probably the one that would. So if Trump's gone, Vance gets it. Vance goes up to president, and the Speaker of the House goes to vice president. So yeah, they're not only going to be using Israel as their hammer or their pit bull, they're also going to be paying Israel back so Israel gets relaxed with the money. So they want Israelis to be buying cars, to have money to pay rent and buy food. That's going to probably change. Netanyahu will be told that has to change. You got to keep the Israeli people happy. And the military in Israel will keep going on, and they might drag the it looks like there's a very, very strong effort to bring the Orthodox in. So the ultra-Orthodox into the military. So the regular Orthodox go in. So what are they going to do with them in the military? Put them in combat positions? Maybe, but probably put them in motor pool, food, laundry, landscaping, painting, transportation, accounting, bean counter type thing, medical, record keeping, payroll, that kind of thing. It'll free up other people that would be more combat oriented. Not that they would not put them in combat. I don't know. Maybe they would. But it looks like they're going to get it. And that's one of the reasons why Trump wants Netanyahu in place. Netanyahu is a self-hating Jew, in my opinion, and he's turning against Israel in favor of what Trump wants. And he's got Trump actively trying to keep him out of jail. I mean, it's been threatened by Trump to put sanctions on the judicial judges, the high-ranking judicial officials in Israel, over this trial with Netanyahu. So Netanyahu's got Trump helping him, and he's doing whatever Trump wants. But they're playing Israel for a chump. They supported the Arabs, and it never works. And now they're supporting the Jews against the Arabs. The Arabs are a pain in the neck. They want to take them out with BRiCS. They want to overthrow the countries that brought them in and take those countries over, which means they're going to go to BRiCS and try to get rid of America, right? They're not going to take over the UK and join America and say, Donald, we want to be your ally. Let's have military exercises together. Let's do trade. No, they're going to say infidel, the big Satan. They're not going to play ball with America. So there's a big shift going on that I see, that the muzzies, the bad ones that are rising up, are getting kicked in the teeth now. Australia was really pro-Muzzy. They got this black eye, double black eye, with the Bondi Beach, and now they're getting a reality check and they're turning against them. And in the UK, there's a lot of people turning against them too. So it's shifting back. Macron is still in their camp. Canada's still in their camp. Let's see what happens. And that, my friends, is what Trump is doing. And you should be able to understand this and see it. And that's why I tell you he's a rotten, dirty piece of garbage. And the Lord does not see him in a favorable light at all. Okay? And the snare's on America because America is doing it. Biden started this. Throwing a few thousand Israelis under the bus to get it going. Then they got Israel on the warpath where they needed it. Israel fought Hamas. They fought the Houthis. They were fighting in Syria. They were fighting in Iraq. They were fighting in Lebanon. And we attacked Iran and got attacked. And that's where they got the motive. But now that the hostages are back, except for one dead body, that may have even come back. I don't know. I don't think so. They're running like this. Now, this is the thing that I think you need to know. This, I think, is true. I didn't get this from the Lord. I got this from people on social media, so maybe it's not true. They're saying that the only chance of demilitarizing Hamas and the PIJ in Gaza is to have Israel do it. And if Israel does it, they're going to have to get rid of probably 20,000 of them, unless they surrender, which doesn't seem likely. So what Netanyahu is trying to do is get rid of the tunnels and a lot of the buildings where Hamas is in that side of Gaza, the ocean side. And then they have nowhere to go. There's no buildings to go in. They want to hide under rubble. That's their business, right? There's no tunnels to go to and no buildings to hide in. And the hospitals will be taken out too if they use them. So what do you got left? Nothing. But they know that Israel is precarious for Israel to kill 20,000 of them. So I don't know how this is going to work out. So that's what's going on right now. And it looks like it's progressing. And Lebanon is saying any day now they're going to have the Litani River area cleaned out. Now, if they don't have it cleaned out, Israel will finish it. If they say it's cleaned out, Israel will probably boots on the ground, drones in the air, surveillance the place thoroughly to make sure there's nothing there. Then Hezbollah, the Lebanese army, is supposedly going after the Hezbollah and the rest of Lebanon. But when you get them back behind the Litani River, which is 17 to 18 miles from the border of Israel, because the river meanders, so the distance varies, right? So you are getting rid of attacks on the northern border of Israel from anti-tank missiles or shoulder fired. They were being used a lot, and that they go a mile or two or something. They can't use those anymore. Katyusha's very doubtful. 17, 18 miles is the limit of a Katyusha maximum. So using Katyushas is most likely not going to happen. Drones, that could still happen, but you got that 17-mile warning gap. Well, you might pick the drone up further, but you could shoot it down when it's still in Lebanon. Then you don't have to sound the red alert. And if they don't clear out the missiles further into Lebanon, Israel will do it. But I think they're mostly defunct right now. I don't think there's that much left. One of the big fears is if they move into southern Lebanon by our border, south of the Litani River, they're going to be able to snipe at us with regular rifles with a scope, okay, and get people inside Israel. They'll be able to use junky, cheap, throwaway Katyusha rockets made out of beer cans that could easily go 12, 14 miles or something like that, and launch those in large quantities. Like they got launches with Katyushas that could do 4 or 6 or 8 or whatever. That they ain't gonna work. So if they're gonna launch missiles, they got to have substantial missiles that are going to be able to go, 25 miles or something like that. None of this Katyusha junk, none of this shoulder fired junk need real missiles, and they probably don't have much or any of those left. So that'll be about the right time that Netanyahu and Trump have discussed and worked out their target package in Iran, that the American Pentagon and the Israeli version of the Pentagon are going to have to hash out the details, not fight about it, discuss it as to why this is a good target, why this isn't, how to attack this target, how to, that's more of a debate and a discussion than a hissy fit or anything like that. So while they're doing that, which is probably a good 4, 5, 6 weeks, they're going to have to do something further to Hamas, and they're going to have to make sure either the Lebanese army does it to Hezbollah or Israel does it. They don't have a problem with Syria because now Syria is accepting the fact they don't have the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, as evidenced by the map now that they're publishing without it in there. Iraq is a threat, but it's not on Israel's border, but it is a threat. It could attack Syria, but I don't think Israel cares. I know I don't. And I don't think they're that quick to attack Syria. Syria will attack them back. And then Trump has Israel take out Lebanon. So what we're watching for now is disarming Hezbollah, which is heavily disarmed already. Syria seems to be okay. The Turkish convoys into Syria sort of got mitigated when America did the strikes against ISIS. 70 strikes with 90 bombs or projectiles, missiles, rockets. I don't think Turkey wants to see how mad America gets if they start messing around in there. So they're not pushing Israel out of that position that we're holding in southwest Lebanon. I guess we're 30, 40 miles in over there, keeping the jerks away from Israel. Finding the tunnel going into Syria from Iraq is certainly no accident. That's an important thing. That's very helpful. Saudi Arabia does have some sort of relationship with America, as evidenced by the F-35 deal. Jordan is, friendly with America. Jordan helped America attack ISIS the other day, so they're not in bad standing with America or Israel. They're not doing anything unless they get overthrown, I guess. Yemen's got to be dealt with. They're already starting with drones again. They're more of a harassment than anything else, but Israel doesn't like it when it drives the people into the bomb shelters. Netanyahu comes up for election without a vote of no confidence in October 2026. Maybe it's October 27th or something like that. I can't remember the exact date. It's in October. There's no firm date for swearing the new prime minister in. It has a maximum of 6 weeks to swear him in. So the swearing in would be even in November or very early December next year, 2026. That's a long time. Netanyahu's not worried about that yet. There's no term limit in Israel, so he could get to be prime minister again and again and again. So that's the progression. So they might knock off Hamas, but I don't think Hamas got what to fight with. They're not very worried about it. Our military is there with our Apache helicopters, our jets, our armored vehicles, our mobile artillery, our tanks. Nothing. They got no way to go. They might occasionally scratch up a missile or two and try to hit Ashdod or something, but that's it. It'll be unsuccessful, taken down. They got to make sure that Hezbollah doesn't surge into Israel to do a massacre. They've got motorcycles, they got paragliders. Their motorcycles have mufflers on them. They're very quiet. They're dirt bikes. So by keeping them out of the Litani River, we're not going to have a problem with that. They'll get picked up crossing close to Israel and they'll get destroyed. They won't make it. Once they get within eye shot of the border, they'll get attacked. We won't wait for them to come to the border. We might start putting artillery on them, although I don't see how you're going to use artillery on a motorcycle going 30, 40 miles an hour. But they could be strafed by planes. They could be bombed. There's stuff that could happen to them. The soldiers could take them out. All the soldiers need is a barrier. And we got walls we put up there. So if the soldiers have a barrier where they don't have to worry about getting shot, they can shoot them off the bikes. The paragliders aren't that much of a problem. They get picked up on radar. They could be taken out with machine guns, helicopters, jets. They could annoy us, but it's not going to be a monumental problem. They're not going to cause any major problems. So Yemen won't, Hezbollah won't, and Gaza won't. But I think they want some finishing touches on Hamas and Hezbollah. So they have a few weeks to do it, blowing up tunnels and blowing up buildings and stuff like that in Gaza to eliminate places for them to hide. So that's the direction this is headed. Now that's man, that's not God. Now I'm seeing lots of fires. I'm seeing earthquakes combined with volcanoes now. That's bizarre. That's columns of smoke, the volcano, and an earthquake together in the same location. We're starting to see that. We're seeing more wildfires in America. See, as Trump progresses with this agenda of his of using Israel, keeping the yoke on Israel's neck, the worse it gets for them. Okay? They'll keep Israel rich, so Israel doesn't have to worry about it. It's not a lot of money to take a nation with 9 or 10 million people and get it wealthier. That doesn't take a lot. If you're doing a country with 50 million, it takes 5 times more. A small country like Israel doesn't take that much. And we make good products, and people are going to buy that iron beam like crazy from Israel. So I hope you figured out what's going on. It's a little complicated, but you should be able to understand it. And the problem that America made was their problem was with BRiCS, not Israel's problem. But they wanted to bring Israel in as the hitman or the army to take out the countries that were trying to control Middle East oil. So they're using Israel for their own purposes of evil. And Jehovah's not going to put up with that. So you can't, there's a definite from Biden and Trump, there's no fear of the Lord. And they're laughing at the Lord and thinking they can manipulate and use the Lord to bless Israel while Israel is serving their purposes. It's pretty stupid. Are they cursing Israel? Yeah, when they let October 7th happen, they're cursing Israel. So does that mean they're being cursed? You bet. Does that mean it's going to take years to do redemption? No, you don't know when it's coming. I'm seeing a lot of subtle signs here that are very encouraging. You don't know when it's going to hit. You're not going to know it. You know the seasons, and the seasons look good right now. Elijah and Enoch will be in place before then, I'm rather sure, because they burn up the enemies. So they'll be in place. That's going to change everything. That's going to open up the door for a lot of you to come to Israel. I mean, what are they going to do? The government of Israel is going to tell Elijah and Enoch, listen, if you start trying to bring your people in here and stuff like that, we're going to put you in jail for an immigration violation. And what are they going to get back? I don't recognize your government. You're an unrighteous government of abomination, transactional liars. And if you want to see what happens, if you try to go against the Lord, go ahead and see what happens. I'm sure you won't like it and you won't survive it. It'll be something like that. It'll be a little more respectful than if it was coming from Iran or Russia or something like that, but not that respectful. God's no respecter of persons, and these are transactional abomination, liars, demon worshippers, and everything else. They're not going to be giving them a lot of slack, okay? And they'll do evil in our sight. They might even go into the next temple and violate it to try to curse Israel. And that might be Vance or Trump, I don't know. It's not going to work out for them. This is not like when Yeshua was on earth. That wasn't the restoration of the kingdom. This is. Ain't going to work out for them. No. they're not going to be able to control the two witnesses, okay? The two witnesses are going to speak very negatively about the churches and about the rabbis. It's going to be extreme negativity. Like what you hear from me. And they're not going to like it. It's too late. Once you start worshiping the devil, you're lost. You're lost. All right. So I want to check and see if we got any prayer requests. I think not. We don't. Okay. My Heavenly Father, Yehovah B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for all the true believers and their households for your peace, safety, protection, joy, healing of their bodies, and they know the scriptures better, and you loose from them all the works of the unclean spirits. And we have peace and adequate money, and our businesses do good. And I pray for the peace of Yerushalayim, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out, guys. Thanks.